Hey everybody, my name is Eric with Corter Leather, and this is the instructional video for our key topper leather kit. So this kit includes everything you need except for a pair of scissors to make 5 leather key toppers. So we're going to open this up and I'll show you what's inside, and then we'll walk you through how to make one. So when you open it, you're going to have a set of instructions, and you're going to have, this is your leather pieces. Then we have our little accessory bag here. We have some sandpaper, a couple of needles, the other one's hiding over here, 2 needles, and this is some Ritza tiger thread. So your instructions are going to have just a visual guide for how to put everything together. In our bag here, we're going to have all of our leather key toppers and a little saddle stitching guide. How to saddle stitch, how to back stitch, but we're going to show you all that in this video as well. Now, what is a key topper? It's just a little piece of leather. We're going to fold it over, and I have a key, and the way these work is once these are stitched up, you're going to put your key right in there, and your key ring goes right through the top there, and you have a nice little key topper made out of leather. So we'll show you how to put this together. So the first thing we need to do is measure out the amount of thread that we need. And normally on a bigger piece, you would have more than an inch distance, right, to sew. And you would take your thread and you would measure 4 to 6 times, depending on the thickness of the leather, the length, and that would pretty much guarantee that you have enough thread. Because we're only sewing about an inch, we can't just use a 4-inch piece of thread. So I'm going to take probably a little less than a foot, because we need to be able to thread our needles as well. And this will be more than enough to sew one side of our key topper. So I'm going to take about maybe 11 inches or a foot of thread here, and then I'm going to thread my needles. Now to thread these needles, you're going to go through the eyelet on one side, and then you're going to puncture through the thread. And this Ritza tiger thread is a flat woven thread. So you can kind of see there, and this is going to lock that needle onto the thread itself. Then we're going to take the second needle and do the same thing on the other side. So to stitch this up, you have your how to saddle stitch card that comes in your kit. We're going to start at the bottom, so the key, if I can grab it, the key is going to go in this way. We're going to start our stitching in the bottom hole towards the opening, and then we're going to put our second needle in the second hole, and we're going to pull those through. Now you don't have to do this part, but I like to. It adds a little bit of strength. I'm going to wrap this thread around the outside seam twice. That'll keep that opening nice and tight over time as the leather gets nice and soft. And then we're just going to saddle stitch up this side here. And now to tie this off, we're not going to use a back stitch because this is only 4 stitches. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take my back needle and I'm going to wrap it around the piece, and then I'm going to stick it into this hole, but I'm going to go up through the center. See how we're in the center there? And we'll pull tight. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the front thread. I'm going to wrap it around, making sure to stack. You don't want these to cross over each other. Stick it through the hole, and this is a little tricky. You want to make sure that your finger is not over this hole, because these needles are a little bit sharp. You can stab yourself in the finger. And we're going to go up through, and we're going to pull that tight as well. Now, before you cut the needles off, all we're going to do is tie a knot. And you normally don't want to tie knots in leatherwork because they'll form bumps in your pieces. You would normally backstitch. But with this, I'll show you, we're going to tuck this knot into this little corner here, and you're never going to see it, and it's a super simple way to have a nice, secure stitch line. Can be a little tricky with the needles on them, but you don't want to take the needles off, because then if you cut the needles off and your thread goes back through, then you got to do it all over again. So I have my knot here. I think it's just a box knot. I did 3 times. I'm going to clip with my scissors, And then I'm going to tuck this knot right in. And there we go, we have our finished stitch line. So let's go over it again on the other side. So I have about a foot of thread with one needle on either side of it. I'm going to go through the bottom 2 holes. I'm going to take the bottom thread and I'm going to wrap it around the outside edge twice. And then I'm just going to stitch up the side. Lastly, I'm going to take my back thread, wrap it around the seam, go through the front hole, but then bring my needle out in the center and pull that tight. And then we're going to do the same with the back thread. We're going to bring it around the outer seam, making sure to stack the 2 threads so they're not overlapping. Go through, and watching our fingers, we don't want to stab ourselves, go through the middle. So then we have our finished stitch. And now we want to lock that in before we cut our needles off by tying a knot. Now all that's left, we're going to come in, clip our thread, and carefully tuck this knot into the corner of our piece. And there we go. So the way that these work is we just slide our key in there, and we have an opening there. We can put our key ring, and we have a nice leather topper for our key. Now, the sandpaper, I'm going to take a little bit here. The sandpaper is used if you have some rough edges and you want to sand those down lightly. Just make sure that you don't sand over this thread that's sticking out in the seams. And then our bag, if you're going to make a nice set of 5 of these and give them to someone or whatever, you can put them in the bag. The other thing that the bag is used for, I have a cup of water here. I'm going to take a little bit of water and put it on the seams of my leather key topper. And I'm just going to dampen them a little bit. Then I'm going to take our bag, and this is called burnishing, and what we're doing is we're bringing out the oils from inside of the hide and polishing up these edges, and that's going to seal them up and protect them from any sort of moisture or anything that might happen, because you carry your keys around on the outside and throw them on tables and stuff, and so this is just going to protect this leather a little bit more. And of course, this is all natural vegetable tan leather, so you can do any sort of dyeing or oiling or anything you want to this. If you want them to be a different color, or you just want them to be a little extra protected from the elements. And once you feel this start to slick up and you'll see it darken up a little bit, you have a nice little burnished edge, and you're ready to go.